So we're here as educationalists, aren't we? Almost all of us are experts in something. What I want us to think about today is what actually are we experts in, and how do we turn that expertise into excitement and enthusiasm with all of our students. I want to look at inspiring and delivering outstanding student excellence. And you'll see something that's really quite spectacular in the way that we can get our students to surprise themselves. You see, we come from a background historically where many of our colleagues consider ourselves, we need to teach this crowd of students something. Whatever our passion is, whatever our subject is, we're going to teach them, we're going to pour knowledge into their heads. But you can lead horses to water, but they ain't going to drink, not if they don't want to. Point number 2, our scheduled contact time, those lectures, those seminars, those workshops, those tutorials. That contact time is far too valuable to waste on trying to tip facts into students' heads. There are much better ways of getting them to learn. Remember, they are doing the learning. They've got to actively engage. And I'm going to have a look at something I've been working on for the last couple of years and thought it'd be quite kind of interesting to share with you guys, that actually leads to far higher levels of achievement than we've ever expected, that the students themselves have ever expected they could achieve. And in the UK context, where every university, every faculty, every school, department has to get their students to take part in something called the National Student Satisfaction Survey. And a lot of the universities struggle to get high levels of satisfaction. The students don't seem to like what they do. So I'm going to cover, as briefly as possible, a problem, or the problem, expose a bit of a solution, a whole set of charts, some of which those of you who were here last year will have seen a couple of the slides, or last year's version of the slides, and then a little reflection on what does this all mean to us. You see, we have a traditional approach. Now, when I started at the University of Derby in 2002, lots and lots of my colleagues knew that they were absolutely certainly they were the domain expert. They knew everything. They knew more than their students. And their role, and I took part in this as well at the beginning, my role was to drum those facts into their head, a 3-hour lecture seminar with a 50-minute break in the middle, because I needed to tell them so much. It was so fascinating, so interesting, so important. It doesn't work very well. And the third part of the problem in the UK is that in many, many universities there is a significant black minority ethnic international deficit in grades compared to the local white Caucasian UK students. In some universities, in some subjects, it can be as much as 30% worse grades for the BMEI students than the white. And that's a horrifying situation to be in, both for them and for us. Why should we fail them so badly? Switch contexts. We're not there as a domain expert, except in one area. We are actually the skills experts, the skills in facilitating learning, teaching, helping, and enthusing students to actually learn, to be able to communicate, to be able to research, to be able to learn and write and analyse. And this last year and all of this year, all of my lectures or modules have been taught, skills-focused, a little bit of teaching, not much. And whether it's a first semester, first year students new into the university system, or the final year students who are just completing their degree, it is all done by them doing research. I guide them on the research. I give them no reading lists. I give them no lists of journal articles, of books or anything, except one book about skills, critical thinking skills. My students have no BMEI deficit at all. They all do the same. They all get approximately the same average. The final year students' work in the assignments they've just finished last week, or at least I got the results by the end of last week, 70 or 80% of all of those final year students are better in quality than most of the papers that we as academics peer review for publication in academic journals. Can you believe that? The better quality analysis, better bibliographies, better density of citations. It's quite amazing what can be achieved. As Plutarch said, roughly speaking, education is not filling, my brackets, leaky buckets, but lighting fires of enthusiasm. As Albert Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited, but imagination is infinite. And the final one that I really like, that resonates with me, because I'm that as well. I have no special talent, but I am just passionately or insatiably curious about what's going on out there in the world. So the problem, we had low levels of achievement. Sorry, a twitch. And many of the students that I teach on other modules, they still have low levels of achievement. Some of those other modules, still an enormous BMEI deficit. And boredom and lack of enthusiasm on those modules. So what's happening? What's going on? I provide in my modules research-based learning. I give them skills guidance. I spend an enormous amount of time on one-to-one work. I give them a very broad assignment topic that they can then negotiate an individual focus that captures their enthusiasm. I give them clear, relevant and simple marking criteria that they can associate with. None of this knowledge and understanding, or it will be at a level equivalent to better than final year undergraduate in critical thinking. What on earth does that mean? How can they work out what something like that means? But something that says very strong critical analysis, they can begin to associate with that. You can associate the terminology with a subject, with a topic, with the assignment. So you craft your assessment criteria very closely to the individual assignment, the topic, the argument that's necessary, and whatever the various stages are that you want to actually assess them against. So that they can understand, they can feel what it means. Down here, not up here. And then the real killer that really drives it seems. 2 weeks before the end of the semester, I say, right, we are cancelling all lectures, seminars, workshops and everything. You will come with your assignment on a memory stick after you've submitted it to turn it in for checkings and where I can electronically record your results. I will review with them 12-minute schedule, their 2,500, 3,000 word assignment as their final draft. I will assess it against the formal criteria, annotate as normal, give them their grade of that piece of work at that stage. They're then told to go away and fix it, bring it up to scratch, and resubmit in about a fortnight. Oh, sorry. Not used to doing this. Yeah. So they have a chance to have it assessed, informally in a sense. They are required to attend, admittedly, and then they redraft it. Now, part of the benefit of the basis of this is that 20% of their assignment grade comes from formatting and presentation, because I'm using the IEEE template, which is an evil template. It's one of the worst templates there is. It's the most difficult template in the world to use. But if they can crack that template, they will be able to do any template in the world in their business world, because they will have better crafted templates to work with. And that's 20% of the grade. Obviously, other things like citing and referencing to the appropriate standard and highlighting in one form or another the relevant part of the references and the bibliography, which they keep forgetting to do in the draft. Even final year students who've been working with me for 2 years and should know better. A couple of modules I'm using. This is in the computing and maths sort of field. 50 to 55 students on each module. And I give them, you can see how big the question is, big data for SMEs. Questions of opportunities, challenges, benefits, and operations for one module, and the same questions of ethics, trust, governance, security, audit, and provenance in the other module. So the world is their oyster. It's a capstone module for them. They can research any field or any aspect that they want to, that builds on their knowledge, their enthusiasm for the previous 3 years' worth of work. The results. No BMEI deficit. In fact, it reverses it. This year I got one of the two modules. The average grade was 2% higher, actually, for the BMEI. I'll show you the graphs in a bit. That draft review process and resubmission is worth between 15 and 18%. My module grade averages are 73 to 78%, so most of the students are getting a first-class honours mark for this module. The numbers of cited sources is mind-bending. Almost no failures. 2 or 3% only. Because I collect together, I collect them, and then one or two students volunteer to do the editing. We then publish e-journals or e-books with all of their articles above 70%. And then we're going into a partnership arrangement with a publisher in England who is going to be using or relating some of these books to their clientele, and we're adding value by writing their own book that goes with our book. Our book is open source. They will have one which is obviously paid for. And of course, by using this approach of delivering the formatting, delivering to a standard by publishing and so on, this is helping their CVs, it's helping their employability. And I'll show you some comments from students about that in a minute. So, the nitty-gritty, the data, enterprise systems and information security and assurance. Look at those grade profiles. Now, the grade profile for other modules will be shifted this way by 2 places, at least, on 1 or 2 modules. This one here and that one there are people who are, for a variety of reasons, are delaying their submission for illness and so on. Couple there who couldn't be bothered, and there's little you can do with those, they don't engage. Now, what we've got here now is the BMEI grade for enterprise systems there, their profile, and the non-BMEI, that's the white Caucasian UK based. And the same, you see how those profiles are showing excellent levels of achievement. By the way, my external examiner has no problem with these profiles. Looked at it last year and were impressed and thought, yep, meets all the criteria, etc. No problem. Now, those of you who were here last year, who saw my presentation last year, I don't know how many there are, will have seen this pair of charts, roughly speaking. What this shows is, this is what each student, 1 to umpty, and vertically are the number of cited sources in their bibliographies. Now, when I first started at Derby back in 2002, 3, 4, that sort of time frame, my expectation tended to be, in a 3,500 word assignment, I'd get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 references in the bibliography. Enterprise systems, an average of 25 cited sources per bibliography, with the outlier at something like 75. That article is probably publishable in almost any academic journal you'd like to care to name. It's an amazing piece of work. Information security and assurance outlier 52 or so. These levels are on average about 3 or 4 sources more than last year's results. And, you know, we all get our students come, Richard, or put your name there, or doctor, or whatever. How many items in the bibliography? And if you say 6, you'll get 6. If you say 10, you'll get 10. I say, sorry, I'm not interested in giving you a number. I say to them, remember what a reference or a citation is for. It is to provide evidence or proof of something. It turns your writing from your personal fairy story into an academically justified piece of work. And you have to think that in English, and I guess in most languages, a paragraph should have at least one new idea in it. Ideally 2 or 3, because you really, critical thinking, critical analysis, comparing and contrasting ideas. So where did you get them from? So each paragraph should have 1 or hopefully quite a few more citations. Oh. And then they think a bit about that, and then they go off and start researching and researching, and that's your result. How many of you peer review articles for academic journals, folks? Hands up. Thank you. And how many references do we often see in your traditional academic paper? 10? 12? How often do you see 30 or 40? Occasionally, but not often. Look at what my students are doing. The impact of that final draft review. Average rises overall 18%. Formatting, worth remember, 20% of the grade. Something like 35% improvement in the quality of their formatting after you point out, come on, you've not used this part of the template properly, or this style. You've got the formatting of your citations wrong. You put an initial in as a Harvard standard citation, not permitted on most standards. You've got the all the reference in the bibliography is the same style, same font, same. Where's the highlighting, bold or italics? Oh, thought I could get away with it. They get the styles wrong. They don't format or use the correct styles for the title page, the affiliation. All the things that we struggle with when we have to use 6 different templates a year for our 6 different journal articles we are submitting, and it gets bounced back because we did it slightly wrong. So we then had to fix it. And I had a lovely story from one student saying, Richard, this is a lousy template. But I was talking to my brother, who's 2 years older than me, And he was saying, bro, just deal with it. You're going to have to do it when you get out there into the big wide world. Deal with it. So he came back and told me that story. Thank you, Richard. You've helped me. Information security assurance, again, a significant improvement. That's 1.5 grades improvement. I've got 44 articles out of 53 of a 70% or above standard, which will get published in this ebook in the next couple of months. Slightly fewer in information security and assurance. And of course, the point about having their articles published like this is that they can put it on their CV. They've got a publication. And those of them who are doing the editing, they have an editorial rights on their CV as well, which sets them apart from all the others. If you go there, you'll already find last year's 2 ebooks that available, and I've got 5 ebooks being edited at the present time for this year. 1 from the first year, 1 from the second year, and 3 from the final year. Of course, it kind of reflects quite well on me, because I then get sort of associate editorship rights as well in my CV, because there are all of these stuff going in there as well. And my boss, who kind of triggered this approach, he got his readership on the basis of open journal source publishing and student work. The feedback, that side is really satisfied, and that's really unsatisfied. So satisfy the quality, assessment criteria are really important. Explain it. Spend half an hour, spend an hour explaining what the assignment is about, helping them to understand what you're really thinking about, what freedom you are giving them. And it points out in those comments below, feedback received was greatly appreciated as it caught out minor mistakes, which enabled me to achieve a higher grade. He probably got 20-30% improvement there in his grade, just by pointing out silly little errors, difficult things. And by giving them the freedom to actually write about a topic that really was interesting, that they were passionately interested in, which they knew was important, because they were writing out problems that SMEs are going to have with big data. And he was able to use it in the research he had done in 3 different job interviews. So, impact on employability. It's noticeable that this was not the only one to say that. There are about, of the 100 odd I saw over the 2 weeks after Easter, 5 or 6 of them were quite enthusiastic about the fact that, yeah, it helped my interview. So, don't waste time teaching facts, they change. What we need to do is to teach them how to find the facts that are relevant at the present time. Never give answers, because if we give answers, they stop learning. Teach them how to ask questions. Develop their skills, and have high expectations. If you've got high expectations of students, they will step up to the mark. And interestingly, they will seriously surprise themselves. For those who want to know where to find that filling buckets one, here is the reference for Plutarch, AD 100. In Moralia, Volume 1, Item 3. And the rest of the references are ones that are interesting in the UK environment, because that's where we have this big BMEI deficit problem. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Possibly time for one question, if there is one. Otherwise, we need to move on for the next person.
These results are also published?
Not yet. They will be published in the IJAS whenever it comes out. I will write a full paper on this one. But that presentation is on my personal website at work.